Hi, I'm here today with Chris Rabideau. He is the football captain from Cascade High School. And I met Chris a couple of weeks ago when he came to speak at a Lions Club meeting that I was at. And I was really impressed with what he had to say. He is a very powerful and positive young man, and I'd like him to share some of his experiences with you. So I'll ask him a couple of questions and we'll let Chris tell you a little bit more about what he's about today.
Awesome.
So, Chris, how old are you?
I'm 17 years old.
You're 17 years old. And you are now the captain of the football team. But
Yes.
from what I understand, you hadn't ever really thought about getting into sports initially.
There was a point where I never thought I'd be involved in any athletics.
And why was that?
I was in a bad situation early in my life.
Okay.
And really, sports was kind of an outlet that we just kind of gave it a shot.
Okay.
And ended up saving my life, and now I'm really into athletics.
Okay, cool. Can you tell us a little bit about your background? Do you mind where you came from?
Of course, yes. I was born in San Diego, California on July 7th in the Naval Hospital because both my parents were in the Navy. I was there until I was about 1, and then my grandma and I moved back to Washington, and I've been here ever since. When I was about 4 years old, my mom came back. My dad was out of the picture for a little bit until just recently. And my mom came back when I was 4 years old, and it wasn't the best homecoming because she was kicked out of the Navy for drug use. She was fighting that addiction from when I was about 4 to 6, and we were still living with my grandma, and it just got so bad, it got to the point where my grandma said, "You guys have to go." And it wasn't anything out of hate. It wasn't anything where she didn't love us anymore. It was just she needed to take care of her own thing. So it was just me and my mother, and we moved into these apartments on Casino Road, which isn't the nicest neighborhood. It's in Everett, and it's tough. And I was there from about 6 to 8, and my mom was still losing this addiction, and I was essentially on my own because I went to Horizon Elementary, and nobody was there for me. It was basically a matter of survival. I had to feed, clothe myself, get myself ready, and take care of myself. And some nights we never had food, and I barely had any clothes. So just surviving with that from the ages of 6 to 8 was really mentally draining. And when I was about 8 years old, my grandma took us back in. And at that time, my uncle moved in with my grandma. So it was my uncle, his son, which is my cousin, who was 2 years younger than me at the time, still is, and my grandma and my mom. And my mom was still losing this addiction, but my uncle was also an alcoholic. So a lot of the times my uncle would get frustrated with my mom, and there was a lot of physical abuse involved. And there would be scenes almost every night, and the cops would come and try to resolve it. And me and my cousin were just kind of there for each other because we really had nobody else. We were both fighting the same fight. And, back to the cops coming every night, I'd have to deal with that and deal with the drama.
And how old were you then?
I was about 8 years old.
Okay.
And I went to Glenwood Elementary, and, the police chief came to our school and talked and, was there for the kids. And I'd have to see him that night, take care of my drug-addicted mother and my alcoholic uncle, and I'd have to see him the next day, which was probably the toughest part about it. And when I was about 10 years old, we had a meeting with CPS because they eventually got involved, and they told us that I would be moving in with my aunt and uncle, now my mom and dad at the time, and my 2 brothers, now 3, who are my cousins. And that was kind of a tough transition because, you get in that environment. That's 10 years. You get in that environment, and even though it's not the best environment.
It is, you're safe, you know it.
Yeah, that's the only thing you know. And I was kind of in a position where I thought that was it. I was kind of hopeless, and I thought that was life for me because I didn't think there was a way out. And, I was 2 grades behind academically. I had to fight an eating disorder. I was really overweight and obese, unathletic, as we talked about earlier. And, I had a lot of mental battles. I was trying to take this family into my heart, and I had to fight the anxiety. I had to fight a lot of depression. Reports say I was also considered suicidal and PTSD, and it was, really a tough battle.
And how old were you at that point?
I was 10 years old, and that was the summer before my 5th grade year. I moved in with them, and, I was just really down on myself because, again, that transition is always the toughest because you don't see the light. But now, you can't really accept this new family because it's a completely different environment. It's tough to accept. And you left your old environment. Now you kind of feel alone. Mm-hmm. And one day we were driving. I want to get back to the football thing. One day we were driving, and my aunt, now my mom at the time, asked me, hey, do you like any sports? And, I was, athletics was never on my mind. I never really cared about it. But, both my brothers were in t-ball and soccer. So I didn't want to say no. So I just I lied, I said football. And we're driving, and she said, oh, okay. And 2 minutes later, we get to a stop sign, and to our right is a big recruitment post, hard to miss, as big as this painting right here. Kamiak Youth Football, sign up today, website, phone number, and everything.
Boy, was that a...
That's the sign.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I knew, okay, something may be happening here. Mm-hmm. And we signed up for football, and the people in the organization, I give a lot of credit to them for making them the person I am today. I have a lot of connections and ties with Kamiak, and I have a lot of love for the people there and the youth organization. They really saved my life. They really taught me great. The game of football and the people there, they taught me great work ethic, great discipline. They connected me with so many people, helped me build relationships, taught me how to build bonds and relationships. And
that's a tough thing to do when you've been on your own the whole time.
It really essentially made me feel vulnerable, and it's people confuse it because people think it's the toughest sport in the world, and it's only for men. Mm-hmm. But you kind of gain that vulnerability because you build bonds with these guys. With my team now, every day I go out, I'm battling with them and for them, and the game. Other than that, taught me great character. It helped me gain character. It disciplined me a little bit, and gave me confidence and taught me how to face and overcome adversity, and taught me what hard work can do, because you practice hard for 4 or 5 days a week, and then you play, and then that's where the success comes in. So that was also a big aspect of the person I am today.
How did that affect how are you doing in school today?
Right now, so before football, I was 2 grades behind, and now I have a 3.5 GPA.
Oh, right.
AP's honors classes.
Very good.
On track to play football and go to be the first in my family to go to a 4-year university in college.
Wow, that's wonderful. So when you talk about, how would you tell someone younger than you or someone struggling with this, what would be a good step for them to take to start moving in a positive direction? Because a lot of people don't know where to begin. What did they do for you in the Kamiak football training? What was some of the first things they did, do you think?
I think the reach out was very crucial. And, something as a leader that I preach to other leaders, because, I'm really into leadership and I want to show people how to be leaders to change those situations. And I think it's the small things. Those small steps can make great distances. Just my head coach just saying, hey, Chris, how are you? And just talking to me on a personal basis. And he didn't just do that with me. It was a lot of the other players. But he knew my situation. And Coach Tony Delicato, who was the coach, did a great job of just reaching out and just kind of showing that he cared and showing that he loved me, but also was willing to fight to make me into a better person.
So do you feel, because a lot of people can reach out to people, but there has to be on your part a willingness, an openness to accept the help.
Of course.
And frequently when you've been in a situation that's stressful or, violent, trust is an issue.
It is.
So how did you...
I think with anybody, big or small, who is in that situation, I think that's the toughest step, but it's the most crucial. Because as much as he did for me, I got to take credit for that too, because you have 2 options. You could shut down, or if you really want that better life, being able to accept that help and feed off of it and being able to use it to get back on track.
Cool. Very cool. Now you mentioned too that you also had a big brother. Is that true?
Yes, okay. Through the organization. So I was officially adopted by my aunt and uncle, and they're now my new family now, the summer before my 7th grade. And a part of that process, we were enrolled in the Big Brothers Big Sisters of Snohomish County. And that's a great organization. I really want to put that out there for anybody who is struggling or who needs a mentor. That's a great organization to turn to, because I still had a little bit of issues, but I was getting better. And I think enrolling in that organization really helped me skyrocket up. And, we had the meeting with the organization. And at that time, I think it was really small, and it was it was a really small organization just in the county. It's a big nationwide thing, but it's really small in the Snohomish County area.
Right.
And we had the meeting. They got to know me. They asked me questions, and But before I was adopted, there was a lot of social workers and mentors that were there, so I didn't really think much of it. But I got the call that I was matched with Clint, and I was really excited. And I go to meet him, and the first thing I noticed is that his poise and his confidence he looked invincible. Like he could take on anything. He was like Superman. That was my first impression. And we went to Alfie's, just me and him after that, and we hit it off right away. We had that connection, and he continued to portray this confidence, and he always has ever since I met him. And he's always had this great character. And that was kind of I was attracted to it because it was something that I wanted in my life. I wanted to be confident in who I was as a person and to trust myself and to learn how to take that first step to accept others in my life and accept the help. But I also wanted to learn to love myself as well, because that was probably the biggest struggle that I personally had to go through. And I think he did a great job in showing me how to trust and believe in the person I am today.
That's wonderful. That's one of the hardest things I think any human being can do is learn how to love themselves. Because you can't really love anybody else until you love yourself.
Exactly.
That's what we've always heard. So today you are now the captain of the football team.
Yes.
And did you say you're also participating as a big brother or working with the Boys and Girls Club?
I do volunteer with the YMCA and
the YMCA.
A lot of those organizations. I volunteer with a lot of youth football organization and camps. And one of my biggest passions is actually to become a football coach. Because it's almost a thing where I want to come full circle, because football saved my life, and I'm truly grateful for this game. Or it was a big aspect in what saved my life. Let me say that. And I want to bring it back. I want to bring back the old football, and I think from what I've seen in coaches and leaders, you have a lot of good coaches and leaders. But I think there's also a big increase of people who sign up to coach but don't really know how to lead and be that positive influence outside of the game. And when I do that, I always keep that in the back of my head that, this is bigger than football, especially with little kids and high schoolers. And, I'll even go to college as well, because, they're still trying to grow and learn too. And I think I want to bring that back to the game.
Okay, wonderful. That is just... I just think you're an amazing human being, and I see you doing great things. And I really would like to thank you for coming in today and telling us. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. Initially, your public speaking sort of started through
Big Brothers.
Big Brothers?
Big
Okay,
Brothers,
can
Big
you tell us
Sisters.
a little bit about that?
So that was also a really big sign too. I think, this is all kind of a storybook. January this year, so Clint was on the board. He eventually was on the Big Brothers Big Sisters board, and he wanted me to go to a meeting because I was starting that outreach into the community a little bit, and he wanted me to see what this was like and what goes into this organization. And January, I called him. I said, I'm interested. I want to go to a meeting. And he was like, okay, we want to have you speak. And I never spoken before, so I was like, about what? I was confused. He was like, "Oh, I just go tell your story and just kind of show these guys what they have produced and what you can do as leaders." And I was like, "Okay." And I got really excited about this opportunity. It was the first time I ever spoken, and I really took it on. And for the whole month of January, I was like thinking, reflecting, writing things down, writing ideas down, giving drafts to everybody I knew and just saying, "What do you think of this? What do you think of that?" And I go to the meeting, and it's like a 10-minute thing that I spoke, and I was so excited and passionate about it. And people were coming up to me, some in tears, and they're like, "You're such an inspiration. You motivate me to be a better person for these kids." And I was asked to speak at a fundraiser event, which was more than the board, and along the same things, and that ended up being posted on Facebook, and everybody saw it, and that's how Cameron Van Til of the Everett Herald did the article on me, and that's how people from the community started to see it. And I got a lot of the same reaction. People were like, "Man, you're such an inspiration to these kids, and you're such an inspiration to leaders. We really want to have that influence on kids who are struggling like you were.
Yes.
And I think it was after that night, and it was in the beginning of February, where I was kind of like, we might have something here. And ever since then, I spoke there more a couple times. I spoke at the YMCA. And Steve Chittenden of the Rotary Club met me at a YMCA event and was like, I want you to speak at the Rotary. And Steve was just an amazing guy. And, we were talking throughout the first couple months leading up to the meeting. And it was kind of different because he kind of challenged me a little bit, because a lot of what I spoke was just kind of my story. But he really wanted me to focus on how to help teens and what are teens like, and essentially how to be a leader and a positive influence. And that was probably the best and most learning I've done as a speaker and as kind of an influencer in the community, because I learned a lot. And I think the biggest thing I've learned was, again, it's the small steps. It's the small things and the relationships you build with people just by those small things. Just saying, I get excited when I see people saying, hey, how you doing? Because, just, hey, did you eat today? Just showing that you care and showing that, you appreciate the other person.
Paying attention.
Exactly, that somebody cares for them, because everybody has scars. I recently had a hernia surgery in August, and, you can see those scars. And some people do have visible scars outside, then that requires bandages and healing and resting and, showing love and essentially love and care for the wound. There's a lot of internal scars with a lot of people too. And I think those small steps, because sometimes I'll be having a bad day and people will just be like, hey, Chris, how are you? And that just boosts me up. Like, I'm excited. I feed off of it. And I think people have the same thing. But I think the biggest thing that we're seeing in leaders this generation and this day and age is they don't understand the impact they have. And they don't understand. They think they need to be this certain type of person to be a leader. No. You just make one small step can make a big impact on somebody else's life.
Yeah, it really can. And I think, when you get these gifts, it's important to give them back.
Exactly.
Pay them forward, however you want to say it. And I think that helps all of us continue to grow by doing that sort of work. So is there anything else you would like to say?
I'm truly blessed to be. I thank you for having me today, first of all.
Well,
I'm truly honored.
Thank you for coming.
And I always remember my purpose. And when I speak, and by the way, I'm still open to more speaking opportunities, and I'm looking to speak to this generation because I want to teach them that.
Meaning your generation.
My generation, yes. Be more specific.
Not my generation.
No, yeah.
I mean, I'll listen, but
yeah. I want to, I never really had the opportunity to speak in front of kids.
Okay.
Especially middle and maybe some high schoolers. But I want to be that person to be them, hey, that's the way out. Because, yes, this people get into outreach, people reaching out to me and knowing me and saying, you're doing a good job. It's awesome, but I always remember that there's so many people have made me the person I am today. And every time I speak and every time I do what I do, it's to prove that your circumstance will never determine your situation. So I want to leave it at that. Again, my name is Chris Rabideau, and I'm definitely looking for more speaking opportunities.
Oh, Chris, thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
I really appreciate it.